That night, long after the locker rooms had emptied and the base had settled into an uneasy quiet, Sarah lay awake on her narrow bunk staring at the ceiling, the muffled sounds of distant drills and humming generators filling the darkness, her body exhausted but her mind refusing to rest, replaying every laugh, every dismissive comment, every sideways glance that questioned her place among them, and yet beneath the doubt burned something steadier and stronger, a resolve that had been forged long before Fort Jackson, back when her grandfather had shown her faded photographs of his unit in Vietnam and explained how fear never truly disappeared, it was simply mastered, and as the days passed Sarah began to channel every slight into discipline, every insult into focus, especially on the firing range where the noise of the world faded away and it was just her, the weapon, and the target, her breathing controlled, her hands steady, her shots landing with quiet, undeniable precision, until whispers began to replace laughter, instructors started lingering behind her lane a little longer than usual, and the same soldiers who mocked her found themselves watching in silence as she outshot them again and again, and when the company was finally tested during a high-pressure night exercise simulating real combat conditions, it was Sarah Martinez who stayed calm when others panicked, who made the call to reposition, who put accurate fire on target when visibility was near zero, and in that moment respect wasn't given because she demanded it, but because she had earned it the only way that truly mattered in uniform, through action, competence, and an unbreakable will that no locker room laughter could ever take away. Your marksmanship scores are exceptional, the major continued, consulting the file in her hands, not just exceptional for this company, but among the highest we've seen in the last 5 training cycles, and that alone would have earned you attention, but it's not the only reason you're standing here today, because Sergeant Brooks' notes repeatedly mention something harder to quantify: judgment under pressure, initiative without recklessness, and the ability to lead without needing permission. Qualities that can't be trained into someone who doesn't already possess them. Sarah felt her pulse thicken in her ears as Major Reynolds stepped closer, her boots stopping precisely 1 pace in front of her. "I've been tasked with identifying candidates for a selective assessment program," Reynolds said, her tone calm but unmistakably serious. "It's not advertised, it's not discussed openly, and most recruits never even hear about it. Those selected don't receive special treatment during training. In fact, they're often isolated, scrutinized, and quietly tested to see if they break." Sarah realized then that the mockery, the resistance, the constant pressure hadn't been random at all. Some of it had been ignorance, yes, but some of it had been deliberate friction, designed to reveal who could function while being doubted. Reynolds flipped the folder closed. "Your peers see a threat because they sense what you don't yet fully understand. You're operating several steps ahead of them, and people resent what they can't keep up with." Sergeant Brooks cleared his throat but said nothing, his rigid posture betraying a restrained approval. "This program," Reynolds continued, "won't give you validation, it won't make you popular, and it certainly won't protect you from hostility. If anything, it will amplify it, because success there comes with distance, secrecy, and responsibility." Then she paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "But it leads to assignments where performance matters more than perception, where excuses are irrelevant, and where results speak louder than locker room laughter." Sarah felt something steady click into place inside her, the same feeling she had on the firing line just before squeezing the trigger. Controlled, focused, undeniable. Major Reynolds studied her expression for a long moment before nodding once. "Assessment begins in 3 weeks, participation is voluntary, but once you say yes, there's no stepping back." Sarah didn't hesitate. "Yes, ma'am," she said clearly, and for the first time since arriving at Fort Jackson, she wasn't wondering if she belonged. She knew exactly why she was there. Sarah drew in a slow, steady breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle not as fear but as clarity. the kind that comes when every uncertain path suddenly narrows into a single direction. She thought of her grandfather's words about mastering fear, of the locker room laughter that no longer stung the way it once had, of the notebook where she had written reminders to herself about why she was here, and she realized that this decision wasn't abrupt at all. It was simply the first time the future had spoken to her directly. She lifted her chin slightly and met Major Reynolds' gaze without hesitation. "I accept, ma'am," she said, her voice calm and unmistakably certain. Sergeant Brooks' expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of approval in his eyes as Major Reynolds nodded once, decisively, then turned toward the door. "Good," she said, already moving, "then your life changes today." The next 30 minutes passed in a controlled blur as Sarah returned to her barracks. Packed only what she was instructed to bring, left her bunk exactly as regulation demanded, and paused only briefly to slip her notebook into her bag, resisting the urge to explain herself to anyone because secrecy, she understood now, was part of the test. When she stepped outside the building, the sun was climbing higher, casting long shadows across the training grounds where she had spent months proving herself to people who never truly mattered. A black government vehicle waited near the curb, engine running, and as she climbed into the back seat beside Major Reynolds, Fort Jackson began to recede behind them, not as a place she was fleeing from, but as the proving ground that had forged her resolve. She didn't know where she was being taken, what trials awaited her, or how many would hope to see her fail, but for the first time since she put on the uniform, Sarah Martinez wasn't reacting to doubt or ridicule. She was stepping forward into purpose, aware that whatever happened next wouldn't just define her career, it would test whether she was strong enough to carry the weight of every woman who would come after her. And as the vehicle disappeared down the road, one truth was already clear: the Army hadn't just selected a recruit that day, it had set a quiet revolution in motion. Tactical command, logistics, and front-line decision-making, Captain Chen continued, her tone matter-of-fact but proud. The idea is to build leaders who understand the battlefield as a system, not just a fight. And as the women around the table nodded, Sarah felt the quiet weight of belonging settle over her for the first time since she had put on a uniform. There was no need to prove anything here because every person in that room had already survived doubts far harsher than locker room laughter. The next morning began before dawn with physical training that pushed them past exhaustion into something more revealing, not just who was strong, but who could lead while depleted, who could think clearly when lungs burned and legs shook. And Sarah quickly learned that Camp Athena measured everything: heart rate, reaction time, decision accuracy, because excellence here wasn't about bravado, it was about consistency under pressure. The tactical analysis sessions dissected real-world operations where a single flaw judgment had cost lives, and instructors demanded not answers but reasoning, forcing Sarah to articulate instincts she had always relied on intuitively, while leadership simulations placed her in command roles she had never officially held, surrounding her with resistance, ambiguity, and incomplete information, and watching closely to see whether she imposed authority or earned it. The command presence workshop proved unexpectedly difficult, stripping away rank and habit until each woman had to stand in front of the others and justify her decisions without apology or aggression. And as days turned into weeks, the program grew harsher, quieter, more isolating. Outside contact vanished, news from the world stopped, and failure became something that happened privately and was corrected immediately or not at all. Yet it was during a full-spectrum field exercise in the third week, an overnight operation combining intelligence, urban combat, medical triage, and command coordination, that Sarah's role shifted from participant to pivot. When a simulated ambush fractured the plan and confusion rippled through the unit, it was Sarah who recalculated the terrain, reassigned responsibilities, and issued calm, concise orders that stabilized the operation. Afterward no one congratulated her, No instructor praised her aloud, but that night Major Reynolds added a single line to her file that mattered more than applause: demonstrates command instinct under chaos. And as Sarah lay awake in her Spartan quarters listening to the mountain wind move through the valley, she finally understood what Camp Athena was truly testing: not whether women could lead in combat, but whether leaders could be forged quietly, without permission, until the world had no choice but to accept them. Our objective is to clear and secure these three key structures within 48 hours while minimizing civilian casualties and maintaining unit cohesion, Sarah continued, her tone steady and precise as she traced routes on the map, assigning fire teams, entry points, and contingency plans without hesitation. And as the soldiers leaned in despite themselves, even Staff Sergeant Thompson noted the clarity of her plan. The exercise unfolded with brutal realism as simulated explosions echoed through the narrow stretch.